Morning. Okay, so we're going to do two things today. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to work through a couple of conveyance exercises like what you were doing on your own last week and just to sort of make sure that we understand how this works. And then the last thing that we're going to do is going to be to do a survey that I've put together for you to sort of see where the class is going. Okay, so with that, we're going to jump right in. So let me put a conveyance in the chat, and then we're going to talk about it. 2A for life, then to A's heirs. Chris, can you see me now? I'm back. Hello? Hello? I'm waving. Okay, moving on. She'll catch up or not. 2A for life, then to A's heirs. Okay. 2A for life, then to A's heirs. Again, as with all of these, the first thing that you're going to ask is, what does the conveyance say? What does the conveyance say? What interests does it say it creates? So what interests do we say, what interests are being created by the words?
Sir, would it be a life estate interest?
Okay, so that's the present interest, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right, I'm seeing that in the chat, a couple folks, yeah. Right? A's, and you're right too, right? So this is me saying, you know, all of you that are saying a life estate are correct. Who holds the life estate?
A.
Right. Okay. What future interests are created by the conveyance?
You call that the interest of the heirs, which is the remainder, right?
Yep, that's correct. Okay. And Chris is correct that the possessory interest that will be created is that yes, that it is a fee simple absolute. Okay. So when you are writing this, the interest that is created is a life estate to A, remainder to A's heirs in fee simple absolute. Okay. But there's a wrinkle, right? Because as we discussed, no one has heirs until they die. Okay. So again, right? If you were looking at this conveyance and going, this looks fishy, you were right. Okay. But I always want to start with, what does the conveyance say? And then we can talk about problems with the conveyance. Okay. So life estate to A, remainder to A's heirs in fee simple absolute. The problem is that the heirs don't exist. So there's nobody to claim, there's nobody who holds the future interest. Okay. There always has to be somebody to hold the future interest. Who holds A's heirs interest? Who do A's heirs inherit from? Yes, A, okay? So what that means is that the present interest and the future interest are held, for certain definitions of held, by the same person, okay? And so in some jurisdictions that follow a rule called the Shelley's case rule, these interests merge. So you will need to check to see if your jurisdiction follows Shelley's case. If you are not, if say on the exam in this class, you are not given an explanation of whether this is a Shelley's case jurisdiction, you need to analyze it both if it is and if it is not. So if it's not a Shelley's case jurisdiction, then what we said earlier is correct, right? Life estate to A, remainder to A's heirs in fee simple absolute. If we are, and that's non-Shelley's case, right? If we are in a Shelley's case jurisdiction, then the interests merge and A receives in fee simple absolute. Make sense? Do we understand how this works? Okay. So the conveyance, again, right? To A for life, then to A's heirs. Okay. This says on its face, Shelley is just the name of the person that the case was about. It does that, they don't matter. Yeah. So it's like how you remember last week we talked about the rule against perpetuities and I mentioned the Duke of Norfolk's case. Same thing. Okay. It's just the name of the case. All right. So this conveyance on its face says that there's a life estate and then there's a remainder held by the life estate holder's heirs. Shelley's case says that under these particular circumstances, those two interests become merged and they both become, and they become a fee simple absolute. Chris, does this make more sense now? Awesome. Next conveyance. Okay. To A until they become a lawyer, then to B until they marry, then to C and their heirs so long as C never marries a Montague. Okay, so let's start again. We take it step by step, all right? Who gets the present interest and what interest do they get? Who gets the present interest and what interest do they get? Go ahead, Michelle.
You get the present interest and fee simple determinable.
Let me stop you there. Okay, you got to tell me what A gets.
Oh, fee simple
Fee simple, just fee simple.
absolute.
Fee simple absolute. So there's no way that that fee simple
Right.
ever divests.
Say that again, sir.
So in fee simple absolute,
Mhm.
there's no way that the fee ever divests. So does A get a fee simple absolute?
Yeah, absolute and determinable.
Right. So A gets a fee simple determinable. Well, if it's determinable, that means that there has to be a future interest. So what future interest is created? Who gets it? And this is not directed just at Michelle. This is for the whole class. What future interest is created? Okay. Who gets it? And what possessory interest does it provide? Okay. Mundell says a reverter. Is that a valid future interest? Is that one of the names of future interests that we came up with? That we have? Okay. Possibility of reverter, right? That's the term that we're looking for. Who holds it? B, okay. What possessory interest will be conveyed when that possibility of reverter vests?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Sure. What possessory interest is created when that possibility of reverter vests? So one thing to remember, right? When future interests vest, they cease to exist. They become a possessory interest. They become a present interest because that's what it means for it to vest. So to fully describe a future interest, you have to tell me what future interest is created, who holds it, and when it vests, what they have. Okay? So we've correctly identified the future interest and the holder. We have to do the last part. Go ahead, Josh.
Sir, could you go over the possibility of reverter interest, please?
Sure. So remember, there are two types of defeasible fees. There is the fee simple determinable, where you have a particular event that has to take place. Okay. And then you have the fee simple subject to condition subsequent, where the condition has to be met, right? The thing has to stop happening for the fee simple to divest. And you remember that I talked about how the boundaries between these two are sometimes fuzzy, okay? And sometimes what you have, and sometimes it's not entirely clear which side of the line you're on. And so I told you that it's far more important for you to know the future interest that goes with each type of defeasible fee rather than figuring out which side of the line you're on. Okay, so for a determinable fee, right, for the fee simple determinable, the future interest is called a possibility of reverter. And the reason that the difference matters, and for the fee simple condition subsequent, the future interest is called a right of re-entry. And the reason this matters is that the fee simple determinable vests automatically upon the occurrence of the event. Okay. The right of re-entry only vests after the condition is met and the future interest holder takes some action to claim possession. Okay, so we know that A has a fee simple determinable. We know that B has a possibility of reverter, so we know that it vests automatically when A's event happens. What we don't know is what B gets when that possibility of reverter vests. So let me put the conveyance back in the chat so that it's at the bottom of the chat and we can all see it. So is what possessory interest does B get?
Wouldn't it be the same fee simple determinable?
Yes, that is correct. Okay, so again, it's determinable, so we know that there's a future interest. What future interest is it? Mundell, were you about
Possibility,
to- Go ahead. I'm sorry.
possibility of reverter.
Yes, that's correct. Who has it?
C has it.
Right? And when that possibility of reverter vests, what does C get?
Fee simple absolute.
Fee simple absolute, there's no condition where C's fee simple can be divested?
Oh wait, yeah. I would say okay. I don't know if this will be a condition, but I
Would it
can
be a fee simple upon condition subsequent?
I mean, that was my intention, but again, this is one of those things where it's fuzzy. And so if you said it was determinable, I would not, it would be a very small, if on an exam you said it was determinable, it would be a very small penalty. If you said it was fee simple absolute, it would be a bigger penalty. Does that make sense? So again, right, we see that there's a defeasible fee, right? It's a fee simple subject to condition subsequent. So that means there has to be a future interest. What future interest is created?
Would that be right of re-entry?
Yep, it's a right of reentry. Who has it?
B. Wouldn't it be
Why? Why does B? Why B?
B? Because B's interest in the estate would end when they marry. So I'm thinking that after C, it would, no, that don't make sense. Okay, never mind.
So
I was thinking it would go back to B, but I don't think that makes sense.
I agree
C's
that,
heirs,
I'm sorry.
where do we fit in C's heirs?
Well, if C loses the estate, then how do their heirs acquire it?
Sir, but it, right, Christina just said it.
And that was what you were about to say as well. Right, the original grantor, right? This is the, you both get credit for being right. You both get credit for being right. Not that it matters, because being wrong is just as important in this process, right? Putting yourself out there, taking the step is just as important. But yes, that is correct. This is the secret of reading conveyances, is that very frequently, if you don't know who receives a future interest, you should bet on it being the original grantor. Okay, so we know that there's a right of reentry. We know that the original grantor holds it. If and when that right of reentry vests, what does the original grantor get?
Would it then be the fee simple absolute?
Yes, fee simple absolute, because there's nothing that, and that these hidden conveyances, right, that go to the original grantor because they didn't dispose of everything, almost always fee simple absolute. Okay, so you would write the interests created by this conveyance in this way, right? Fee simple determinable A.
Dr. Corral, can you just sum up that conveyance again, please?
That's what I'm typing in the chat right now.
Okay, thank you.
But that's absolutely a fair question. Okay, so these are the interests that are created in this conveyance. Fee simple determinable to A, possibility of reverter to B in fee simple determinable, a conditional possibility of reverter to C in fee simple condition subsequent. Why is C's possibility of reverter conditional? Because if B never takes, then C gets nothing. Okay, and then a right of reentry to the original grantor in fee simple absolute. Technically, it's probably a conditional right of reentry to the original grantor in fee simple absolute, and then there's no, I was going to say that there might be a reversion to the original grantor in the fee simple absolute if A, B, and C, no, anyway, what I was thinking was wrong. Ignore me. I'm not going, it's wrong. So, yes, go ahead.
The conditional possibility of reverter to C, that just has me a bit lost. The
Okay.
conditional part has me lost.
Sure. C does not have a future interest until B's interest vests. So if A never becomes a lawyer and then they die, right? They never become a lawyer, then A's interest converts to a fee simple absolute, B's interest goes poof, and C's interest never even comes into existence. Does that make sense now? Why it's conditional? Great, awesome. Okay, here's the wrinkle. And let me put the conveyance back in the chat so that we're all looking at it. Here's the wrinkle. We don't like restraints on marriage in property law. We generally take the position that you should be able to marry who you like, and we should, and your relatives or your friends should not be able to coerce you into certain types of marriage behaviors by using property. But that only applies to complete restraints on marriage. Okay, so complete restraints on marriage are void. So the condition on B's possession is void. And so in that case, what we would have is fee simple determinable to A and a possibility of reverter to B in fee simple absolute. Okay, possibility of reverter to B in fee simple absolute. However, partial restraints on marriage are allowed. So what's a partial restraint on marriage? You can say, I don't want you to get married until you're 25, because I don't think you're going to be mature enough to be married until then. Okay. You can say, I don't want you to marry that no good, lazy boyfriend of yours that you're dating right now. I want you to marry, you know, somebody who doesn't suck, right? You can say, I don't want you to marry somebody from this family that I hate. Okay, I don't want you to marry a Montague. I don't want you to marry a Capulet. These are all things that will be upheld. Okay, and if we assume that B has some sort of valid condition, whatever it is, C's condition is valid. Okay, so to put it in the chat, just to make sure that we're all on the same page, complete restraints on marriage are no good. Partial restraints on marriage are valid. Make sense? Good? Questions? We feel like we got to
Can you go
ahead.
Sorry,
ahead,
can
Kira.
you give an example of a complete restraint again?
A complete restraint, then
Yeah.
to be until they marry. Okay, so when B gets married, she loses the property. Okay. To write it as a condition subsequent, you would say then to be so long as she never marries. Right? So does that make sense?
So then are you saying that the condition would be void because it's a complete restraint?
Yes. So again, this is why, so C's condition is a partial restraint. B's condition is a complete restraint. So let me walk you through again what we've done through this so that you understand what's going on. We went through the conveyance and we asked the question, what does the conveyance say it creates? Okay. And then we said, okay, but this condition on B is a complete restraint on marriage, and so it's void, and that changes what would be created, right? The void condition means that we have to go back and start back at that point in the chain, okay? But if we change B's condition so that it's valid for whatever reason, then the original statement of interests is valid. Okay? Does it make sense? Do you understand what we're doing here? Okay. There are two pieces of this puzzle, right? The first one is, what does the conveyance tell you? The second one is, are there any rules of property law that render part of the conveyance void? Okay, and what we're trying to do is we're trying to go through the steps of understanding what the conveyance is saying, and then we ask, are there any rules that render parts of this void? Go ahead, Kira.
Oh, sorry, I didn't know I unmute. That was
It's fine. It's fine. I just do.
Okay, but let me ask a question. So
Sure.
if B's condition is a complete restraint, would would C's future interest becomes like non-existent,
Right, right.
or would you change B's so that the conveyance could like continue on?
There are cases out there where courts engage in what's called reformation of the conveyance in an attempt to try and continue to give effect to the grantor's intent. They are extremely rare. Generally, if a condition is void, it just drops away, and anything that depends on it drops away, which is why I say that if the condition is void, that B has a possibility of reverter in fee simple absolute. Okay. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does.
Great. Chris, are you still confused?
Yes, I am. I was with you, and then you lost me.
Okay. So what I'm attempting to do here is I'm attempting to walk you guys through the process of identifying the interests. But one of the things that you always have to keep in mind is that, as I said on Thursday in the lecture, stupid people convey property all the time. And they don't necessarily convey it in a way that's valid. And so you have to be aware of the possibility that things in the conveyance may not work. And one of the things that doesn't work is a complete restraint on marriage. And in that case, what you have to do is you have to know, okay, what happens is the condition drops away. The condition ceases to exist. And so anything that comes after the triggering of that condition also ceases to exist. Does that make sense? Does that help? Are we? Great, awesome. Okay. Anybody else still confused about this one? Anybody else still not sure? Speak now, or we're going to move on. Okay. Last conveyance. No, Mundell, no, because the condition on A's grant is valid. So A still has the fee simple determinable, and B gets the property when that condition triggers, but they get it in fee simple absolute. So the property passes to B in fee simple absolute, and C gets nothing. Okay. So next conveyance. To A and their heirs, so long as A never joins the Catholic Church. So again, we start with the present interest. Who holds it? What do they hold?
A holds the present interest, and A has fee simple determinable. Well, yeah, I would say that.
So I would describe this as a condition subsequent, but I think that describing it as determinable, it makes sense, right? So long as is a clue that it's condition subsequent, never is a clue that it's condition subsequent. But I agree with you that it's, joining a church is sort of an event, right? It's something that happens. And so if you called it determinable, again, small penalty. Okay, you call it fee simple absolute, larger one. So yes, fee simple, condition subsequent. Okay,
So,
determinable
Dr.
not determinable isn't wrong. Mundell, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so you're saying that the only distinction that we're to look out for are the words, really and truly?
I say that there is you can find cases out there where the courts will tell you that that's the only difference. I am inclined to tell you that in practice, right, in terms of figuring out what's going on, that the difference is fee simple determinable is a single event that occurs. Okay. Fee simple condition subsequent is something stops being true.
Can you repeat that?
Okay. Fee simple determinable is an event that triggers. Okay, that's the future condition. Fee simple subject to condition subsequent uses a something ceasing to be true as the triggering condition. This is not, I do not expect this to be, like, I understand if this is confusing because it's confusing, okay? And this is part of why you will see courts tell you that the words are what's determinative, because that's easier, okay? So long as means condition subsequent, okay? But if means condition subsequent, you know, until means determinable. Okay, go ahead, Michelle.
Sir, I kind of lost, right? Because to be back to the issue on this, don't want to say it, but this Owusu book. And they're saying that words such as until, so long as, whilst, during, they normally give rise to a inference that is a determinable fee. And the way then, so if we read this book and then we read your question here, we can jump straight to the point that it is a determinable.
Yeah. So let me tell you where I'm coming from in looking at this.
So I try to figure out that
So
back.
you are absolutely correct, right? That Owusu says, and he says this on page 88, the line of distinction between the two types of fee appears very tenuous indeed. It seems that the distinction turns more on the words used than on the substance.
Yeah.
Right? So you are absolutely correct that that's what Owusu says. But he says a little bit later, but text writers maintain the view that the distinction involves questions of intention. In the words of McGarry and Wade, and he quotes McGarry and Wade, Cheshire and Burns state the test thus here, okay? So then if you go over to the worksheet that I posted on the course website.
Yeah, what page, sir? Well, not what page, but
of the worksheet, page 3.
Three.
The modified fee simple. The estate is determinable by some specified change of circumstance or some named but unpredictable event. And then the conditional fee, this refers to a grant of a fee simple which is defeasible upon the breach of a condition.
Okay. Right. So I get you. So upon right.
So I agree with you that this is confusing. I agree with you that it's not clear. I agree with you that the words give us some helpful information, right? Whether it's so long as, whether it's until, whether it's provided that, right? But if, whatever. But the key thing that you should be looking for is whether there's an event or a condition. Wow, that I just saw that in the, that's really sort of weird. The hand coming at the camera. So does that help? Does that make sense?
Kinda.
Okay. And again, I am not especially concerned with the distinction between them, because as we keep coming back to, the distinction is not always very clear. I am much more concerned with making sure that when you identify the future interests that are created by these defeasible fees, that you have them correctly aligned. Okay. So, okay. So we have the defeasible fee held by A, okay? I would describe it as condition subsequent, but I don't think determinable is wrong. Okay. So what future interest is created? Who holds it? And what possessory interest do they receive? Future interest.
Dr. Krell, can you put the conveyance back in the chat, please? I somehow got booted out of the meeting.
Sure. To A and their heirs, so long as A never joins the Catholic Church. Okay? To A and their heirs, so long as A never joins the Catholic Church. So A holds a fee simple condition subsequent. If you say fee simple determinable, not a big deal. Okay. What future interest is created? Right of reentry. Who holds it?
The original grantor.
The original grantor. And what do they get when it vests?
Fee simple absolute.
Exactly. Okay. So you would write this as, right? Hang on.
But would that fee simple to the original grantor then become upon condition, on the condition that on the condition that A never marries, that never joins the Catholic Church, sorry.
Never joins the Catholic Church, right? So that's the, but it's not a conditional because there's not an intervening step. Okay.
Cool. Gotcha.
So either the interest vests or it doesn't. There's not this intervening uncertainty. Okay. Here's the wrinkle. You know how I said we don't like restraints on marriage because we think you should be able to marry who you want? We really don't like restraints on faith. That's really not okay, because that's a matter of conscience and you should not be able to coerce someone's conscience, right? So almost certainly the condition attached to this conveyance is void, and A takes in fee simple absolute. Okay, makes sense? This is much simpler, right? Much easier. Okay, sure. We don't want to coerce A's conscience. So if A is called to the Catholic Church, it is not appropriate for the original grantor to be able to control them in this way. That's wrong. And so the condition drops away, right? And what we are left with is to A and their heirs, which is of course a conveyance in fee simple absolute. Now, does it make sense? Chris?
So I just want to make sure I understand. Because we don't like restraints on faith, the condition would then go away. So the original grantor would get nothing, and it would just the estate would just go to A and the heirs in fee simple absolute.
Right. The future interest disappears.
Okay. So question, when we're writing, like if we would take it a question like this, is it that we have to go through the first thing, but what we just did about the right of re-entry and stuff, and then say this, or is it that we just go through this first?
No, you would be able to say, I mean, this would be a complete answer to this. Fee simple absolute to A due to the void restraint on faith, right? This process, the purpose of this is to give you practice touching every step of the process, okay? But if you want to short circuit it in your answer and just go straight to the chase, that's fine, okay? All right. Last thing, and then we're gonna go, okay? Let me show you guys what I want you to do this week. Okay. Here we go. And okay, so you're going to go on the course website. You're going to go to this week's calendar block, and you're going to click on the link for midterm course evaluation. And it's just got 8 questions there for you guys, and it's just it's really intended to give you a chance to tell me the things that are working for you and the things that aren't working, because I want to do more of the things that are working and less of the things that aren't. So that's what I want you to do. At some point this week, please get that done, and I will see you guys tomorrow. So take care, and see you tomorrow. Bye.